you've got to enjoy what you're doing, because it's part of your motivation, is your enjoyment for what you're doing. And I'm a firm believer, um, motivation is everything.
Hmm.
It is everything.
Here today, my guest is a current USAT Level 2 certified coach. I know him personally. He coaches anybody from the average age grouper all the way through Olympic level athletes. I want to welcome to the show today, Coach Ryan Ross.
Thanks, Jesse.
How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Kicked my butt a little bit with what should have been an easy swim set this morning, but
Well, what happened?
I'm tired from the rest of the week because you've been scheduling me for a lot for a lot of work.
That tends to happen. Fatigue is not the enemy.
I know. I had an old coach that used to say, an endurance athlete's job is to resist fatigue. It's not.
Resist fatigue. It's everything.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
it's everything, and that comes down to our efficiency. Um, but yeah, fatigue resistance is everything.
So I want to talk a little bit about kind of how did you get to where you are now?
Hmm.
So but without starting with a love story between a man and a woman, tell us a little bit about your childhood growing up. Like, were you active? Like, did you do sports, or were you a couch potato?
No, I was active. I did sports. I played, several ball sports. I played a lot of baseball and a lot of basketball growing up. Those were definitely my two favorite. I tried everything. I played some football, um, some soccer, but my loves with the, I guess we'll call them the ball sports, were definitely basketball and baseball, and I played those, both through high school and actually both of them after high school some.
Like in a rec league, or
Uh, Baseball was a rec league. Basketball, um, I did some like AAU like type sports, like basically like
Mhm.
summer league type teams. Um, and so yeah, so I love those sports. I thought I was going to be. My dream at one time was to coach in basketball, and after high school, I don't know. I didn't have my stuff together maturity wise. You know,
Like you're out running around smoking pot,
yeah,
chasing
I wouldn't go
women,
that
like.
far. I'm definitely not smoking pot. I haven't really done that in my life, but no, it's like I wasn't ready for the next level. Uh,
Mhm.
so I ended up just playing sports on my own. Took a few community college classes, and I eventually got a college degree. But I don't know, coming right out of high school, I just wasn't. I just think I had a maturity issue with making that next step to college and getting on some career path, when I was 18, 19 years old. It took me a little bit longer.
Right. And I think it's for a lot of people. I've always, even at the time going to college, I thought it's a little insane to sit an 18-year-old down and say, what are you going to do with the rest of your life?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Like with my own kids, I won't push them too hard too quickly because I just didn't know. I mean, it's funny is, I mean, my degree is in accounting, and when I took my first accounting class, I didn't even know what accounting was. I just figured it would be a nice elective. I kind of knew I wanted some type of business major, but I got in there and everything, it came naturally to me.
It doesn't seem like the average person would say accounting sounds like a fun elective. I
Well,
mean,
just an elective for some
oh,
type of
okay.
business degree. So I was like, oh, I'll give this one a go now. And I didn't really, I don't think I had a career path in mind at that point, but it's just, some things just come naturally. And that always helps when you're in those last few years of college and focusing on, a specific major type thing.
Okay.
So to
Okay.
answer your question, yeah, ball sports. Did a lot of cycling growing up when I was young as well. I think I was cycling very early, and then as I got into like the middle school ages, um, I started realizing that cycling stuff wasn't as cool as the ball stuff, around school and
Mhm.
stuff. So, heavy into the ball stuff throughout high school, after high school, and then kind of came back to cycling later in my college years.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like here in the U.S. we don't really have a culture like for young athletes in cycling, whereas
Oh
like
yeah, definitely.
Europe seems to have a lot more of that.
Oh
So
yeah,
it's
it's totally it's mainstream there. It's a mainstream accepted sport, and here it's not. So there's definitely not all like, I mean, as you know, in this community, you think about sports like soccer and baseball and the youth programs. I mean, it's and there's some stuff out there now you can do in cycling, but it's just not as prevalent. You know, I have a 4-year old son now, and he's got a year already of BMX racing under his belt. Um, but the closest BMX track to where we live, I mean, we have to drive 40 minutes.
right.
So it's just, things aren't as mainstream.
So you and I kind of knew you'd grown up cycling.
Mhm.
How do you come from cycling and get to triathlon? I mean, there are plenty of guys that just decide I'm going to race crits or
Mhm.
I'm going to go off and do off-road or, BMX or any of the thousand variations of cycling. How do you decide, okay, I want to add two more sports to this?
Yeah. So me, it was I think in my mindset, I'm kind of a one at a time type guy. So, I've raced I think almost every discipline in cycling except, in the last few years we've got like this gravel thing and
Mhm.
cyclocross. I have not gotten
Mhm.
into either one of those. I think I've gotten to the point where maybe I'm just not up to learning something new at this point. Um, Getting old, I guess. But I was doing road, mountain road, ultra road for a while, and I decided to give triathlon a try. I wanted to mix in more variety with what I was doing. I had some injuries,
Mhm.
especially with the ultra distance cycling. We're talking races, 12 and 24 hours, and some
Okay.
ultra distance stuff. So had some injuries and gave it a try, and I'll never. I mean, I think everyone remembers their first triathlon, and I remember mine, and I was really blown away by the environment. Was really good. My first event was a pretty big, about 1,000 participant event, and just the environment and the excitement of the environment was actually nothing I had ever experienced in the sport cycling. I've just single sport cycling. It was just amazing how many people were there supporting the athletes,
Mhm.
and the camaraderie is just different. In cycling, you arrive at an event and everyone's looking at each other like, how am I going to beat you? How am I going to tear your legs off? It's the stare down, which is all fine. But it was just a great experience my first time, and I just got hooked after that. Hooked after that, and like I said, just the variety and the balance of doing multiple things is something that really appealed to me at the time, and I enjoyed.
Okay, so you said you remember your first one. So
Mhm.
what age are you at this point? Like what year is this? Where are we in kind of
Okay.
the like sport progression?
That would have been we were at this event. It was Shawnee Mission Park.
Mhm.
This was back when the triathlon was on a big up as far as participation, and this is an event that you pretty much at the time, you had to sign up like really like in the middle of winter
Right.
for a
Right.
July event. To where now, unfortunately, you could sign up for that event at Packet Pickup. So
Right.
yeah, it was Shawnee Mission Park, and uh, what can I say? I got the idea over the winter, and started
Mhm.
to slot my way through swimming and running and all the soreness that it caused me initially, because I did run a year cross country in high school, but it was really just to stay in shape for other things.
Mhm.
So I just made that switch and started mixing in that variety. But the year was 2000. This would have been 4. Is that
Okay.
right? 4 or 5?
I was
I'd have
like,
to look
Shawnee
back.
Mission Park, I think, is over 30 years old
Oh
now,
yeah,
so
it's been around
it's
forever.
been around forever.
Yeah, I want to say it was 04, 05, where is about where that would have been. I was like I was like what, 34, something like
Hmm.
that. 34
Hmm.
years old, first triathlon in that time frame.
So then you caught the bug from there.
Caught the bug from there. Like I said, I was just thought the event was super exciting, a lot of fun. I enjoyed training for it with all adding in all the variety. No more injuries from long distance cycling, and so yeah,
Hmm.
it started from there. And I've always been, with whatever I've done, I've always been kind of a student of the game. I mean, I always did a lot of reading, a lot of research. I enjoyed that aspect, and that kind of led to getting into coaching later. I was dating who is my wife now. Um, we were in dating mode at that point, and I remember um, she had she got into triathlon about a couple years before I did, and she had a coach at the time, and she was training for a half Ironman distance race, and she had a coach, and she had a really poor coaching experience. And
Hmm.
then she found out that the coach had given her basically the same training plan that he gives to everybody. So it was kind of like ended up being a cookie cutter thing.
Okay.
So, and she was kind of upset about that. And she's not real one to be like real animated or get upset. She's like, why would he give, all these other people who I'm way more experienced than, I'm way faster. They got the same schedule. I don't get it. And I thought to myself, you know what? That is kind of poor. And
Right.
that was my first thought is, I could do this. I mean, so that was kind of my first inkling of going into triathlon and then getting into coaching.
Just a matter of like, you know, I mean, we've talked about this before. My kind of like entrepreneurship endeavors, where it's like you see this gap where you're like, they're not being treated right, or this could be better, and you just decide, I
Yeah,
think I can do that.
you got to solve problems,
Yeah.
and definitely, and so yeah, that's how it came to mind. I mean, one thing I'd want to say on this topic is with growing up with cycling and everything. For me, um, cycling started as a kid, and I just rode like crazy. I mean, I rode my bikes like crazy all over the city that I lived in, and I developed that childlike love for the sport that will never ever go away.
Hmm.
Because when you do something as a child, I mean, you're not thinking about training or the next race, what your power is. You're just out there busting it, and I think having that developing that purity rather than think about it because we got adults now, adult age people who've never done any serious cycling. They come into triathlon,
Hmm.
and they never develop that. They never have that childlike. They miss the childlike childhood type love, that passion. And I think that's so important because how many triathletes would not go out and just go for a ride if they weren't training for a triathlon?
Hmm.
Would they just go out and ride for the love of it? And I mean, I know that I absolutely would, and I do. And so I think that was something that was really important for my development and for me in cycling is developing that childhood type love. And that's why I love to see, my 4-year-old, even though he's racing about 5 years earlier than I even did any racing. I mean, I see him out and we go on rides. He's 4 years old, and I mean, he went with my wife. They out for a ride. He's got a new BMX bike for Christmas, and I went out one day and rode with him. We rode over to a park near me. Rode like an hour, and and I was like, wow, he's really doing good. He's freaking 4 years old. We're out there riding for an hour,
Hmm.
nonstop. And then the next day, my wife's like, hey, I'm gonna take Levi on a bike ride, and she hasn't been on the bike in a long time. I'm thinking, this would be kind of interesting, actually, what happened here. She came back home like an hour and a half later. Her eyes were like this big around, and she's like, "Oh my gosh!" Hour and a half later, so there he is as a child, an hour one day and an hour and a half next. I mean, how many of us adults who are doing triathlons are doing that? Even especially
Yeah, it was like
know?
the enthusiasm of a child
Yes,
without
exactly,
understanding like limitations or trying to like periodize your schedule or anything. It's just like it's just pure joy.
exactly. And I think developing that is just really important.
It
Develop
almost
that
kind of
passion.
reminds me of I don't remember where I was like it, where this concept came up first for me, but it's like keeping the beginner's mind, that
Mhm.
child's mind when you approach something. So, instead of being like, you and I clearly get very involved in like my schedule and trying to make things right and fitting it in and trying to maximize potential and all that stuff.
Balance,
But it's
yeah,
like sometimes you like just to get back to the beginner's mind where it's like, I'm just learning this today. I'm just having fun today. I'm just,
yeah.
enjoying it for what it is instead of being so focused on the greater picture.
Right. You've got to enjoy what you're doing, because it's part of your motivation, is your enjoyment for what you're doing. And I'm a firm believer, um, motivation is everything. It,
Hmm.
it is everything. So yeah, and so if you're not enjoying yourself, that makes that tends to damper our motivation.
It's something that I kind of think about, and another one of my coaches that I had in the past, one of my high school cross country coaches, he I kind of debated with him a little bit on this, but he says that motivation cannot be coached. Where do you think motivation comes from?
Whew, that is such a good question. Can it be coached? Okay, so I have often said, many a times. Okay, so I do agree with him to an extent, and I know I know where he's coming from.
Hmm.
Um, because motivation has to come from within. It has to come from within you.
Right.
You have to wake up in the morning with that burning desire. But at the same time, I think the coach has a role in it, in that, um, having the accountability piece and the structure piece helps you be motivated. Like, if you don't have the accountability piece, if you don't have the structure, I mean, I see a lot of people who it dampers their motivation not having those things in place. I
Hmm.
mean, so it helps you because then you've got that total package and you feel like I'm in a good direction. I feel good about what I'm doing because I have the accountability and the structure. So I think they do kind of bounce off one another. But also, like I said, it's got to come from within. And if I see an athlete at a race and I see them out there on a run course and I cheer for them, give them a high five as they run by, that's great. And we all get that a little jump in our motivation from that. But that only lasts really 20 seconds, 30 seconds, and then you're
Hmm.
out. Still got 5 miles to go on that half Ironman.
Right.
I mean, you do. So it so that type of motivation is extremely, extremely short term.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that aspect of it is probably what your coach is referring to, is that you have to be out there and want it yourself and have that burning desire. So I can kind of see it both ways. I think providing the accountability and the structure helps an athlete be motivated.
I'll see if maybe like I guess this is how I think about it, and we'll see whether you agree. I kind of think about motivation like a fire. Um, a coach cannot light the fire, but a coach can fan it. So, some athletes come to a coach and it's already roaring. There's a bonfire already
Mhm,
available. And other athletes come to a coach and maybe there's only an ember. But,
mhm.
you know, so I kind of think about it where it's like that fire already has to be lit. And then your job is in part to foster it.
Yeah, I could agree with that. I mean, because sometimes if the fire is burning too high and the coach has to be like, "Ew, we have to curb the enthusiasm down." Seriously, because
Yeah.
I actually got one right now, and coming back off the off season and had a season last year, lack of motivation. I was coaching this person, had personal issues. I totally understood it. In fact, I went to him several times last year and said, "Look, you've got bigger things going on. Why don't you go focus on those things?" And he hung on because if he didn't have the accountability and the structure, he would have went to crap. He wouldn't have been
Hmm.
doing anything. But he came back this year and told me a story about how things have worked themselves out, and I was amazed how well he did in the first few weeks coming back. How he's hit every workout, showed a high level of enthusiasm to the point I did have to say, "Okay, we're going to slow down here a little bit. Let's not get you injured," type thing.
Right.
Right,
Right.
because the fire was burning so high. So yeah, I mean, no, I agree with you. Yeah, the coach can definitely assist it. And again, I'll go back to providing the accountability, structure. I think, relieving an athlete from wondering, hey, what should I do tomorrow? What am I going to do tomorrow? I think that helps with the motivation. It helps, like, spread that fire a little bit. But
Hmm.
I do think the fire needs to at least be started.